Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today. This is the Bodega Cat Book Club Health Edition, and we are continuing our reading of Never Be Sick Again by Raymond Francis. And today we'll be reading chapter 3. This is part 2. And yeah, so far I like it. So let's do it. Who succumbs to disease? Only sick people become sick. Once you start to compromise health, a cascade of events follow. Once a critical number of cells begin to malfunction, internal communications and self-regulation systems become debilitated and destabilized. As the number of compromised cells increases, the effects are compounded. Before anyone can exhibit noticeable signs of disease, normal cell function has to be compromised significantly throughout the body. Vulnerability to infections, for example, is created by widespread cellular malfunction. An infection indicates that cellular malfunction already has weakened the immune system. Having a cold or the flu is an alarm screaming at you that all is not well, because healthy people resist infections in the first place. Few of us pay attention to these alarms. We think that having a cold or the flu is normal, but that once the symptoms are gone, we are well again. Not so. The level of your health and immunity determines whether or not the presence of a microorganism results in an infection. You are already sick before you come down with an infection. I'll read that again. You are already sick before you come down with an infection. One more time. You are already sick before you come down with an infection. Otherwise, everybody who is exposed to a given bug would become sick, which is not the case. Contrary to the common notion that we catch diseases, people become sick only after their cellular health is already compromised. Disease, cellular malfunction, comes first. Active infections and chronic problems follow. The skeptic says, but he was born with asthma and suffered from it as an infant. She was in the best of health, took great care of herself, and then suddenly got breast cancer. Although we hear these kinds of statements frequently, the notion is flawed that a person is a powerless victim of disease. This way of looking at events comes from living in a society that does not have an accurate understanding of disease or of what is required to create and maintain health. Think of the historically healthy societies such as the Hunzas. These people implicitly understood what they needed to maintain their health. They lived far longer than we do without the chronic degenerative diseases from which we suffer. The principles of good health were built into their beliefs and lifestyles. The key lesson to be learned from these people is this: healthy people do not get sick. Most of us have not learned to think this way. We grow up in a society where almost everyone has a chronic disease. We have been taught through experience that disease is a normal part of the aging process. Diseased people are typically seen as the helpless victims of an inevitable and natural process, especially when the symptoms of disease develop suddenly. People feel surprised and victimized. Yet the two causes were there all the time. Gradually wearing down cellular competence and creating an opportunity for disease to strike. As part of the body's normal maintenance and repair process, old cells are constantly being replaced with new ones. If new cells are not built with proper raw materials, they will be unhealthy and weak. Such cells are unable to perform their normal tasks, including routine repairs, and will be vulnerable to sickness and injury. Ultimately, the body's self-regulation systems will break down. Because of the poor diets and the toxic environment in our society, cells are often deficient and toxic when first created, becoming progressively more so over time. Excuse me. This situation is precarious, with a large number of cells either malfunctioning or functioning at a borderline level. Similar to walking a tightrope, falling off is easy. Any number of stressful factors can affect a person adversely who is already deficient and toxic, be it a stressful event, a pathogenic organism, a night out on the town, a physical injury, or even a lengthy airplane flight. Almost any challenge to a compromised system can be the straw that breaks the overburdened camel's back. Though painful to acknowledge, these sufferers invariably, if unknowingly, have made poor choices leading to illness. In the case of sick children, the parents have made the poor choices. We are not taught that we have the ability to, and in fact need to, consistently make meaningful choices about our health. Instead, when we become sick, we look at something outside of ourselves to explain our misfortune. We look for some obvious circumstances that can explain why we are sick. Do these excuses sound familiar? I walked outside in the cold air and ... Or so-and-so was coughing and sneezing near me at work and... Oh, so-and-so was coughing and sneezing near me at work and ... Or everyone at little Ricky's school is sick. It's no wonder that ... Or obesity runs in my family ... We are accustomed to ill health as something that mysteriously lands on us. We fail to see our own role regarding its development. When invited to consider illness as the result of our poor choices, usually we reject such a notion. By placing the blame for sickness on excuses, we relieve ourselves of responsibility. However, accepting responsibility for our health can be enormously empowering. The overall competence of cells, determined by relative levels of deficiency and toxicity, are the sole determinants of health. Learn how to embrace health and avoid illness by educating yourself in how to make healthful choices that lower your levels of deficiency and toxicity and promote your cellular health. In which direction is your health moving? Some of the time we are sick, and most of the time we are well. This variability in our individual health is almost exclusively the result of the choices we make. In this fluctuation, sickness is not the absolute opposite of health. Health and sickness are not fixed concepts, and they cannot be defined in black and white terms. Instead, consider your health as a constantly changing continuum. Consider the balance between sickness and health as a scale, with optimal health at one end and death at the other. Somewhere in between is a diagnosable disease. As life progresses, your position on the scale shifts, moving back and forth all the time. At any time, it is worthwhile to ask, where am I on this scale? In which direction on this scale am I moving? The health and performance scale shown on the next page is simple but effective, serving to illustrate the relationship between sickness and health. In considering this diagram, remember our definitions of health and disease. Optimal health on the far right is that theoretical state in which every cell is functioning optimally, and you're absolutely as healthy as your genetic capacity allows. This condition is called homeostasis, when the body is perfectly in balance and continually is fine-tuning itself to maintain that balance. Very few Americans are at this end of the scale, but we should strive toward this goal. Between the optimal health and death is diagnosable disease. In this state, cellular malfunction is occurring on such a large scale that the symptoms of a medically defined disease are produced. On the far left of the scale is death, where all cells have ceased to function. How interesting, just a side note, interesting that the author uses the right side of the scale as perfect health and left side of the scale as death or illness. So in esoteric studies, the right side is health, or the right brain, right? Up and to the right brain. Because you do need intuition. Intuition needs to come in. as part of being healthy. Because intuition allows us to tap into the divine energy for healing. And then death, on the left side of the scale, that's the left brain, which is the left brain is the hamster in the wheel, going over, around and round and round and round, doing things over and over. That's the definition of insanity, right? Doing things over and over with the same result or something like that. And eventually leads to death. Yeah, because it can't get out of that loop. Interesting. I don't know. I thought that was interesting side note. Oh, okay. So here is the picture that the author talked about. On the far left is death. And then in between is diagnosable disease. So usually, I think a lot of Americans are probably in between diagnosable disease and death. So we're way far from perfect health. Oh, interesting. Okay, onwards. Tragically, more than 3 out of 4 Americans have medically significant cellular malfunction, a diagnosable disease of some kind. The overwhelming majority of us are somewhere between diagnosable disease and death. That's exactly what I just said. How interesting. It's funny. Think about your personal health equation, your position on this health and performance scale. Do you have a diagnosable disease? If so, you are located between disease and death. Even without having a diagnosable disease, your health may be far from optimal. Fortunately, your position on this continuum is not static. It can change depending on your choices. No matter your age or your current state of health, you have the power to change the direction in which you are going and how rapidly you move on the health and performance scale. I learned this firsthand in making powerful life-saving choices after it was declared a medical certainty that I would die. I learned it again years later after witnessing the illness and extraordinary recovery of an elderly woman. A family called me to ask for help with their bedridden and senile mother. This woman was 94 years old and unable to get out of the bed. Sometimes she recognized her family and knew where she was. At other times, she did not. Her children loved her very much and did not want to place her in a nursing home. Yet the burden of her care had become too much for them. With nowhere else to turn, they asked if there was anything I could recommend. My reply was, probably not. Given the woman's debilitated condition, I assumed that her health had deteriorated beyond repair. Excuse me. At a certain point, enough cellular machinery has been damaged that sufficient repairs can no longer be made. Though I was pessimistic about the likelihood of any improvement, the family asked for my advice anyway. In retrospect, I found out that I still had a lot to learn about the capacity of the human body to heal itself. I started out by recommending some specific vitamin supplements to help supply certain key nutrients to her cells. When I asked what she was eating, the first item they mentioned was milk. After years of study, I come to realize that cow's milk is not an appropriate food for any human being. Uh-oh. We drink organic milk in our household. We got to change that. Okay, for someone in her condition, cow's milk was almost certainly putting a toxic load on her already struggling body. I recommended that they stop feeding her milk. As I hung up the phone, I doubted that these suggestions would have much of an impact or that I would ever hear from them again. 2 weeks later, the phone rang with gleeful reports of her miraculous improvement. She was getting out of bed, going to the bathroom, and getting dressed all by herself. She was walking around the house and having rational conversations with her family. A miracle? No, just a movement of her health equation in the right direction. By addressing her cellular deficiency and toxicity, this woman's body began once again to repair and regulate itself. Indeed, I have learned that almost anyone can alter his or her health equation in a positive direction. Sickness never happens without a cause. The cause is usually our own ignorance of or disregard for our personal health equation. So how can you avoid getting sick? Simple. Make the kind of health-conscious life choices that optimize your personal health equation. We live in a fast-paced society that has created an environment that adopted diets, lifestyles, and behaviors that do not support human health. If we want to be healthy, we have to make choices that significantly deviate from the diet and lifestyle of the average American. Eating a normal diet and living a normal life are virtually guaranteed to make you sick. To prevent this from happening, you must be proactive. As Joseph D. Beasley, MD, said in the Kellogg Report, in the long run, individuals cannot be better than their biology, as affected by their nutrition, ecology, and lifestyle. The key to never having to be sick again is the ability to choose between the things that are healthy and the things that are not. This sounds simple, but accurate information about what is healthy is hard to come by. Next, let's look at a Next, let's look at a definition and an overview of each of the 6 pathways between health and disease and explain how knowledge of them can lead to better decisions about health. The 6 pathways between health and disease. Having read this far, has your perspective on health and disease changed? Are you becoming accustomed to the theory of one disease and 2 causes? You have learned that if your cells malfunction to the degree that they interfere with your body's ability to balance and regulate itself, you are diseased. Whether you are suffering from the flu, cancer, diabetes, depression, or something else, cellular malfunction is always the essence of the problem. The tool that I developed to help myself make better choices is the 6 pathways. As demonstrated, your personal health equation is always in flux, depending on the choices you make. You will move either in the direction of optimal health or in the direction of disease and death. This movement occurs along the 6 pathways. These 6 pathways are like 6 different roads. Each spans the distance between health and disease. Depending on the choices made along each pathway, you are moving toward one or the other. The 6 pathways concept provides a framework through which informed, logical, health-enhancing choices can be made. The pathways are nutrition, toxin, psychological, physical, genetic, and medical. A holistic approach to health requires attention to all of these pathways. Consistent movement in the wrong direction along any of them can lead to cellular malfunction, breakdown of self-regulation, and diagnosable disease. Continuous movement in the right direction leads to optimal health and performance. By learning about the 6 pathways, you can have a clear understanding of the different ways that health can be influenced. You will be empowered to mitigate the negative effects of modern living, thus taking charge of your personal health. Pathway number 1, nutrition. What is America's leading cause of disease? Malnutrition. We think of ourselves as so well fed that the idea that we are suffering from malnutrition is difficult for most Americans to grasp. When we hear the word malnourished, we recall television images of starving children. Although Americans are rarely undernourished to this extent, we are malnourished, and in fact, it is our leading cause of disease. The typical diet, what most Americans eat, simply does not supply sufficient nutrients. No wonder that we suffer from the one disease in its various forms. We're malnourished from the inside out, aren't we? Instead of outside in, like some of the pictures we see of babies, skinny babies in Africa. All right, the nutrition pathway is about the relationship between the nutritional content of your diet and your health. Obtaining proper nutritional intake on a daily basis is important because nutrients acts as a team. A shortage of even one nutrient will decrease the effectiveness of all the others. Nutritional status affects our entire being, including moods and emotions, the ability to learn and remember, physical performance, and resistance to disease. Cells and tissues thrive when provided with an environment rich in nutrients such as water, oxygen, vitamins, minerals, proteins, carbohydrates, and essential fatty acids, while deficiency causes disease and shortens life. To some degree, almost all Americans are overfed, but undernourished. Oops, sorry. Take care of my, where are we? Take care of my allergies there. My allergies acting up today. My apologies. Where are we here? I don't think this is it. I lost my place. Ah, here we go. Okay. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. To some degree, almost all Americans are overfed but undernourished. Virtually everything that we eat today, unless we make special choices, is nutritionally inferior to the foods that our ancestors were eating as recently as a few generations ago. Not only have we fundamentally changed what we eat, we have changed how our food is grown, processed, transported, stored, treated, and prepared. These changes cause our foods to be nutritionally deficient, the primary cause of our modern epidemic of chronic disease. In addition, our crops usually retain toxic residues from pesticides and other agricultural chemicals, and some are even ripened with artificial chemicals. Both nutritionally deficient and chemically toxic, our modern food supply promotes disease. Pathway number 2, toxin. Toxins interfere with normal cell function, thereby causing malfunction. Most people know that toxins are dangerous, but what are toxins and how do toxins damage our cells? We are exposed to toxins in various ways. In the air we breathe, the water we drink, the clothes we wear, and the food we eat. In our modern world, we are exposed to these environmental toxins all day, every day. Toxins in our environment can expose an undue external burden on us, while poor nutrition, lack of exercise, and negative thoughts and emotions can increase our toxic loads internally. I read somewhere there's about 70,000 toxins that bombard us every day. Every day, that's mind-boggling. 70,000. Wow. That is mind-boggling. Our bodies do have the ability to detoxify, but our detoxification mechanisms require essential nutrients to function properly. Inadequate nutrition deprives the body of the raw materials necessary to detoxify. So toxic levels build and negatively affect cellular health. In our society, toxic overload is having a bigger effect than it should, because our deficient diets do not supply the nutrients necessary to operate and maintain our detoxification mechanisms. Not only is our toxic load the highest in history, but our ability to process and eliminate these toxins is impaired. Because we know that excessive toxic exposure causes disease, learning about the toxin pathway can teach us which substances are toxic, how toxic they are, where they are, how they get there, and how we can minimize our exposures to them. The toxin pathway provides insight into the toxic aspects of our daily lives in our food supply, water supply, homes, and personal products, including many soaps, shampoos, and toothpaste. Yes, definitely, those are the hidden toxins. I stopped using a lot of those and switched to organic as much as I can. Fortunately, healthful alternatives are available. Toxic exposure is a fact of life, and the body is designed to deal with it. Our problem is toxic overload, i.e., when the toxic input exceeds our ability to process it. Understanding this pathway can help to reduce toxic exposure to manageable levels by teaching us to recognize and avoid toxins in our daily lives. Pathway number 3, psychological. The psychological pathway may turn out to be the most important pathway of all. Through study of the psychological pathway, we learn about the significance of thoughts, emotions, and behavior, and how these affect our health. Yeah, I think thought is a big one because it affects our emotions and affects our physiology, affects our physical aspect. So yes, it's a very big one. Many people believe that the mind has an enormous effect on the body. This idea, however, is based on the supposition that the mind somehow is separated from the body. In truth, the entire body, including the brain, is the mind. When we understand that the mind and body are one, reports of placebo effects and miraculous healings should not be surprising. In fact, they are part of our everyday life. Our thoughts and emotions trigger a cascade of biochemical reactions that either enhance or damage health. Oh, that's a nice way to look at, to put it that way. Interesting. How we react to various life events and how we respond to our thoughts and emotions are choices that can damage or enhance cellular health. When we allow to enter, what we allow to enter our minds on a daily basis is critical. Like the news, I stopped watching the news a long time ago. In fact, I stopped having a TV in my house a long time ago. What we think and feel over a lifetime plays a major role in our health or illness. The significance and impact of the factors associated with this pathway may indeed be more important than all the nutrients and toxins we put into our bodies, perhaps even more important than all the other pathways put together. The psychological pathway explores the subjects relevant to behavioral and psychological factors in health and disease, including meditation, stress, thoughts, emotions, and the placebo effect. Pathway number 4, physical. The physical pathway contains recommendations on how to recognize and provide for the body's physical needs. This pathway can be used to enhance physical potential and to minimize physical damage. Just as nutrition and toxic avoidance are important to health, physical maintenance and care are also essential to the health equation. Most Americans do not get adequate exercise, sleep, or sunlight. An indoor sedentary lifestyle means little or no exercise nor exposure to natural light. Our mental lifestyle, meanwhile, is excessively fast-paced, and this, together with a high incidence of sleep deprivation, means that often we are chronically and seriously stressed. Also, we are exposed to subtle physical influences, such as electromagnetic fields caused by the wiring in our homes, hair dryers, heaters, electric razors, cell phones, and the x-rays we receive as part of medical and dental evaluations. Yeah, those x-rays I've never done a mammogram. Those are really bad. Pathway number 5, genetic. Limit genetic damage. Optimize genetic potential. These are the goals we strive toward on the genetic pathway. The genetic pathway focuses on optimizing the expression of our genes to promote health and limit any damage to the genes. Each human being is genetically unique. Inherent strengths and weaknesses are a part of our basic genetic makeup. Genes are the blueprint of life. Our genes, however, rarely have the final say, and they are certainly not the primary cause of disease that modern medicine would have us believe. Genes are a potential for expression, and they express themselves in ways commensurate with life circumstances. The genetic pathway explores topics such as the genetic causes for disease and the effects of genetically engineered foods. Further, this pathway identifies specific hazards that can potentially cause genetic damage, such as environmental chemicals, prescription drugs, and radiation. Most important is the personal resolve of individuals to commit themselves seriously to optimizing health, rather than accepting their so-called genetic predisposition as a foredoomed fate. Pathway number 6, medical. The medical pathway is perhaps the most surprising and most misunderstood of all the pathways. As we have noted, many people rave about and swear by the near miraculous feats accomplished by modern medicine. The technology that contemporary medicine has to offer is best used in crisis intervention and trauma care. However, such applications are limited. No doubt that physicians are well-meaning, but a blind trust in them and in the treatment they offer, surgery and drugs, to the exclusion of other considerations, can lead to destructive and even lethal consequences. Interesting. I was a hospice nurse for many years and cancer nurse as well. So there's the three things that, cancer patients, or options really, that cancer patients get is surgery, chemo, or radiation. So when you think about it, surgery, you cutting the person, cutting off the body, right? Kind of like a Frankenstein kind of thing, which is gross when you think about it. And chemo, which is poison. They put a lot of poison, mass amounts of poison in your body. And then radiation, which is burn, poison, and cut. That's the three options. It's very Frankenstein. It's Frankensteinian when you think about it. Yeah. Sorry, I digress. Anyways, I thought I'd mention that. Side note, the medical pathway helps to explain how modern medicine can cause disease. Widespread ignorance and failure to comprehend this fact are reasons that modern medicine harms the health of our population. By studying this pathway, we can identify and avoid potentially harmful aspects of medicine, while still reaping the benefits of modern medical technology. The medical pathway is unique, expressing itself through all of the other pathways, and thus compromising health at many levels. In working to optimize your personal health equation, you need to be aware of the ways in which modern medical care actually can damage your health along any other pathways. Oh, let me read that again. In working to optimize your personal health equation, you need to be aware of the ways in which modern medical care actually can damage your health along any of the other pathways. Chapter 10 about the medical pathway describes more specifically medicine's capabilities and its limitations. A new theory for a new millennium. During the last century, modern industrial society has brought fundamental changes to human existence. We are developing and changing the world much faster than our biology can adapt. Today, nutritional intake, toxic exposures, and stress levels bear little resemblance to those of even our most recent biological ancestors. Every cell in our bodies is adversely affected by these profound changes, which is why our society has suffered more and more chronic disease. Disease is the catastrophic result of decades of inadequate nutrition, toxic exposures, sedentary lifestyles, familiar and social disruptions, and a dependence on drugs, prescription, over-the-counter, and recreational. In this chapter, I have attempted to outline the complexity and confusion that surround disease in our society. We offer a new theory of health and disease, a new way to look at these concepts. There is only one disease, cellular malfunction, and only two causes of disease, deficiency and toxicity. 6 pathways can lead to health or disease. Our confusion arises because cells malfunction in many different ways. Modern medicine categorizes the symptoms created by these various malfunctions as different diseases, even though they have common causes. Achieving victory over disease requires removing the causes, eliminate deficiency and toxicity, allow the body to self-repair and self-regulate, and disease will go away. End of chapter 3. Wow. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed that. It's very interesting. We will continue next week. Same time, same place, same bat time, same bat place. In the meantime, I hope you guys all have a great day and a wonderful week. Bye-bye now.